Can I force my new girlfriend to cook for my family? Story: I have a big family that's incredibly close. We have big family dinners every few months where we all meet at my great-grandfather's estate and eat together. Typically, how this works is that the women go cook for the time they're there and the men don't, which I am fully aware it's sexist as hell. That being said, I am one of the youngest people in my family, and my protests mean literally nothing. Some of those women choose not to cook. However, this is usually met with a level of ostracizing. The women who don't cook are lazy and long-term girlfriends, so they kinda already have a good family relationship doctored in. When I have seen new partners not cook, it's gone bad, like completely ostracized, not speaking, cattiness, rudeness, etc. This dinner will be in 2 weeks, and my girlfriend was asked if she would attend. Initially, she said yes, which is great. I wanted her to meet everyone, and for everyone to get used to her being around. But when I explained to her the tradition, she was understandably bothered. I told her that I understood where she was coming from. However, it was best for everyone if she just played along. I told her this wasn't a permanent thing, and that I was only asking her to do this so that she could avoid bad treatment from the rest of the family. This is her first impression, and I don't think it's best if we cause waves. She told me that it's unacceptable, and that if she has to do that, she will not be going. I've tried to find a compromise with her on this, but she won't budge, and she's pissed at me. She told me that if I think it's acceptable to make her do this, I'm just as bad as everyone else. While my point is that she needs to make a good first impression. Am I the bad guy? Response 1. You're the a-hole. Why won't my girlfriend abandon her sense of self-respect so that she can establish herself as a subservient woman tool so that my sexist family won't mentally and verbally abuse her? She just doesn't get it. Reply 1. Why is my girlfriend mad that my family expects her to cook for them after inviting her to dinner as a guest? Reply 2. And why does she think I should myself not abuse her the way my family wants to? My protests are literally meaningless. Reply 3. Protests are meaningless, my ass. Do you know what OP could do? March into the kitchen himself and help. And if they tell him to go back, insist on helping. Break the barrier himself and implicitly shame the other men who haven't. That's how a similar horrible dynamic broke in my family. When I was a kid, I noticed only the women prepped food and cleaned up, so I challenged my brother and father to help. My aunt cleared my plate for me with a passive-aggressive comment, and I was so distressed that my father has gotten up to help every year since then, and so has my brother. These traditions aren't set in stone. Reply 4. I have a similar story. I noticed on my mother's side, after a big family, all the adult women would help the host, wife only of course, clean. As a young adult or late teen, my mom decided to summon me to come help. I grabbed my twin brother and male cousin and brought them into the kitchen. My mother told me it was a woman's work, but they stayed and helped. Guess what? That crap stopped happening. Reply 5. It really just shows the warped view that some men see as progress. He seriously thinks it is enough to just say, "Oh, this is sexist and unfair," and then proceed to do literally nothing to change or shift the sexist dynamic he supposedly disapproves of. Why? Because it is better for only him to keep the status quo because he is the only one benefiting. Of course, he wouldn't get up and help the women. He is comfy on the couch. It really doesn't take that much effort to forget his non-sexist values because he is rewarded when he does. When she conveniently conforms, she is swept up into the kitchen to do all the actual hard work of making meals. I wish more men had your mindset to actually think to challenge the status quo, because apparently when women ask men, in OP's eyes, they are just being difficult and creating problems for themselves. You're the a-hole. Reply 6. This. Men who genuinely think, please compromise on your hard-won right to equal treatment so you're not rocking the boat is an acceptable ask? They are part of the problem. Stop expecting marginalized groups to compromise so that others don't have to confront their bigoted belief systems. That is not their responsibility. Instead, tell the people with bigoted belief systems that their beliefs are unacceptable. IDK, who needs to hear this, but if you won't stand up against bigoted beliefs when you see them, you are no better. Reply 7. And he keeps emphasizing that his motivation is for her to make a good first impression on his family. But what about the first impression his family just made to his girlfriend about enforcing their patriarchal beliefs on others and punishing those who don't comply? Like, why can't he go to his family instead and be like, I really like this girl. Please don't embarrass me by trying to enforce your outdated beliefs on her and scaring her away. I think it's important that you guys make a good first impression on her for me. I get that he doesn't think his family would change their behavior regardless, but it would speak more that his actions match the stance he claims to take on the matter. Or, spare his girlfriend from it by explaining why he would rather his girlfriend just not meet his family so she wouldn't have to be subjected to that treatment, instead of begging her to go and play along. Response 2. So I'm a woman, and my family is like this. When my boyfriend, now husband, started coming around, it drove him crazy. He would start doing things like this. Extra Wolf, please come help with the dishes. Oh, let me help. Extra Wolf, you stay here. Oh no, honey, you're a guest. Already putting hands in soapy water and looking for a sponge. I bet you can guess how this turned out. The men of the family didn't even notice he was gone, and every single woman in my family absolutely adores my husband and comments that he must treat me so well. They even tell my cousins, you should get a boyfriend like him. I am very much not the favorite in my family, so it's hilarious to me that all 3 of my grandmas are absolutely smitten. Side note, I can tell you exactly why the women in your family resent other women who don't labor in the kitchen with them. It's because they want that freedom to relax a little too, and they're jealous. My best recommendation to you is to take your girlfriend to the kitchen, have her sit down and chat with your family, and you do some dishes or food prep work. That way she is not trying to socialize without you, her safe person, being around. And her share, although she should not have a share of the work, is being covered by you. I can't believe you have to have it spelled out for you like this, but you're the a-hole if you ditch her in the kitchen to work with strangers while you wander away to go shoot the stuff with your male relatives without a care in the world. Reply 1. This is how my husband and I also handle my parents' families being like this. The expectation is women get up and clean while the men do not. And if I get up, he goes with me. If I do not, he might go instead. Because both families roll like this, and it's pretty gross, and we don't want to rock the boat and not be helpful, but also want to break the mold and show that better men exist, which is pretty easy to show them up, as most, as I'm sure it is in your family, will have not moved an inch as the women clean up everything too. OP, I guarantee that at least some of the other young women in your family resent this, and resent their fathers and uncles and brothers for being okay with this. You have done nothing because it benefits you. Most of you have allowed this behavior to harm women in your lives and seemingly ruin relationships, which getting up to help is basic. Edit to add, basic for all of you. You should all be ashamed of yourselves, because being okay with this is not fair and is not a partnership. You most of all for inviting a guest on the stipulation she works. Because that's what this is. It is unpaid and seemingly unappreciated labor of women. Not to mention that it seems to be so radically part of this scenario that the other women mean any woman who bucks against it. At least you warned her of that, stupid as your request giving the warning is, because if you brought me into this without warning, and I was treated this way, and you did nothing, I would be gone. I love cooking, but I've got enough of this attitude in my family. I would not date or marry into a family like mine with a partner who rolled with it, as you clearly have done. If you have 9 men at a table and a 10th is a Nazi and joins them, and none get up when he comes along, you have 10 Nazis. The same concept applies to the misogynists at the table in your family, which you have not metaphorically or physically to help left the table from. You are not an ally to women, because when this happens, whether it is your partner or not, you have rolled with the status quo and done and said nothing. Learn from this and do better. Apologize to your girlfriend. Apologize to the young women in your family. And if you bring your girlfriend, you help in the kitchen with her to be supportive of her, keep them from hating her, and help break this absurd tradition. She is your guest, and this misogynistic and rude treatment is ridiculous. Reply 2. Tough is it being with families like this? Where are you all from? As an American, it flabbergasts me to expect a woman guest to cook. The worst thing you can do at a dinner when first meeting is permit a guest to cook, clean, or anything. And the burden of a first impression is on the host, not the guest. If OP's girlfriend visits my family for the first time, she's going to be sure to get the comfiest seat, teased by grandpa, and a whole specialist team dedicated to ensuring her glass doesn't run out of drink, in which the family has bought 7 different juices and sodas to try to make sure she likes at least one of them. She won't even be permitted to bring her plates to the kitchen, let alone clean them, until like the 3rd meeting. What ass backward cultures are you coming from, where a woman is seen as a servant before a guest? Where is the hospitality? Reply 3. America. It's like the old traditional family never changed their dynamic after 1950, kind of a thing. I'm on the East Coast, but my family that is still like OP's is out in the Midwest, in rural areas more. They're Polish and they are so toxic with this stuff. My mom was raised this way too, and it has been a real challenge to get her to see how bad some of it is and notice how bad some of it has affected her mental health and mine over time. They wouldn't expect this of real guests, but if you're dating in, you should be part of the family, which means if you're a woman, you're part of cooking and serving the real guests, if any. And the men, many of whom on that side do the whole weaponized incompetence, I don't know how to use the microwave, you just know how to clean it better type of thing, to avoid being useful in any way at all in their day-to-day lives at home. My idiot of an uncle on that side, for example, commented that I have my husband well trained because we split household tasks and he is good at baking and I suck at it. It's really gross. Response 3. She told me that if I think it's acceptable to make her do this, I'm just as bad as everyone else, while my point is that she needs to make a good first impression. You're the a-hole. What about your family making a good first impression on her and not expecting her to be an unpaid cook and servant? Reply 1. My thoughts exactly. OP is so concerned about the impression his girlfriend will make with his family, but they've just immediately made a bad impression on her. Why on earth would she want anything to do with his family now? Reply 2. I'm baffled by how many Reddit posts I've seen where it's along the lines of, my family has this toxic, sexist tradition. I know, it's bad, but why won't my partner just suck up their pride and do it? Reply 3. I've tried to compromise with her by falsely promising that she'll somehow reach this magical point in our relationship where my family no longer views her and women in general as subservient house slaves for men, and until then, she just needs to give up her self-worth and be a subservient house slave for my family so they'll approve of her. I guess I missed the part where OP is compromising anything on his end. Kind of feels like he doesn't know what compromise means. Reply 4. Exactly. And if I was OP and my family were that misogynistic to the point they would ostracize someone for not cooking dinner like a good little woman, then I would disown those people in a second. No way I want people that barbaric in my life, regardless of whether they're blood-related or not. By the sounds of it though, OP's family is rich, and he probably is the type of person to sell out on his basic morals and values to stay in the little money pot. You're the a-hole, OP. Not just for asking your GF to debase herself, but for also condoning those crappy a-hole people you call family. Response 4. You're the a-hole, mainly because you seem to be very concerned with your girlfriend making a good first impression on your family, but not at all concerned with your family making a good first impression. It reads as though you care far more that your family approves of your choice than you do that she approves of your family. That's pretty messed up and self-centered. Reply 1. Of course, he cares much more about his family, as I'm assuming this is an old money situation, judging by his great-grandfather's estate mention. That's where his bread is buttered and always will be. I feel bad for whoever enters that family if they don't have a similar or higher level of inherited wealth. Reply 2. If they had real money, the help would be cooking dinner. The women wouldn't be caught dead in the kitchen. They wouldn't know what to do. Reply 3. That's certainly not the case for all money families. I lived with an old money family for a while, and they always cooked their own meals at home. Hired help was limited to a single maid's cleaner. The women were in the kitchen as often as the men, and it was considered rude to sit around and not help out if you were a guest, especially if you were staying for an extended period of time. It varies dramatically from family to family. It definitely taught me that the biggest difference between people is their values and not their circumstances. I certainly met some women during that time who would have much preferred not to be in the kitchen, but they wouldn't have been caught dead being an ungrateful guest. Response 5. You're the a-hole. Your family is bullying women who don't cook? That's horrible. That's just so wrong. Reply 1. What's wrong is how OP acts as if his hands are tied in this when he's showing to be just as sexist as his family. If he expects her compliance with this, what else is he going to try and suggest she go along with within the family? Reply 2. I enjoy cooking and I'm good at it. Nonetheless, my response to such demands is a firm no. And if someone still dares to whine for the reason they're told my cooking is a privilege to be earned, not a service to be demanded, unless they're ready to pay me a pro chef rate per hour and provide all the ingredients, then by all means, demand while I'm on the clock. Reply 3, yeah, there's a framing of this that makes sense. If the women of the family want to get the girlfriend away to gently get to know her, welcome her, bond with her, then that's one thing. The fact that there are stern consequences for not staying in the kitchen is really troubling, and OP should be brave enough to stand up for his GF at the very least by favoring her company over the bullying family's company during their time there. Response 6, you're the a-hole. So you disagree with it, but are you in the kitchen in the meantime? Have you ever tried to go in there and help provide the labor, or are you only not sexist to women you want to sleep with? Reply 1. I don't know how it's not obvious to OP that just having the women opt out of the work isn't a solution that would change any hearts here. When there is an imbalance, it's far more effective for the people on the favored side to make the call for change. In this case, men like OP who think this is wrong need to protest with action, cooking, cleaning, etc., and not rely on new women to protest in ways that will be interpreted as laziness or refusal to help or not wanting to spend time with other women. Reply 2. It's not fair they have to cook, and I don't have to. Those poor women. It would suck to go into the kitchen and help with dishes. Those poor women. Standing up for them doesn't help. Those poor women. Like, imagine if that was our attitude toward any other form of discrimination. Dear Reddit, my dad has a slave managing our tobacco field. I'm a white person, so I can't do anything. Why isn't my friend Travis just agreeing to pick cotton? Doesn't he get my dad won't change, and it's just what the POC do at our house? Response 7. Have you ever tried to help out with the cooking? I think it would be rude for a couple to come and not contribute, but there is no reason it has to be your girlfriend. You could make some of the food. Reply 1. This is the answer. If you want to combat this tradition, start cooking OP. You might suddenly not want to go to these events either because they are a lot less fun in the kitchen. Reply 2. Do you think it would be rude to invite your family over for dinner and have them not cook and prepare the food for you? You expect your guests to do everything, and it's rude if they don't 100% serve you? Weird freaking culture. Reply 3. This was the compromise I offered, that we'd both go in to cook. I checked with my mom to see how she thought that would go over, and she said she doesn't see an issue with it, but my girlfriend was not for it. Reply 4. That's because you'd already told her women were expected to cook. Would have gone a lot better if you just said, we're going to have to do some cooking. Later, you can point out that the other men in your family are useless at cooking, but that you're happy to help. Also, the fact that you had to ask mommy means you've never helped before and have gone along with this. Look, I get that this is a long-standing tradition. A lot of families have traditions like this that happen almost by accident. I have an Italian-American family. The women cook and aggressively shoo anyone else out of the kitchen. The men clean, though. That being said, the part where your family is so obsessed on being insistent that women cook that they ostracize new partners is disturbing. And you go along with it? Response 8. You're the a-hole. If I were your girlfriend, I wouldn't see a future with you after this and would end things. My opinion only, but that's what you asked for here. Reply 1. Imagine being married into this family. The spouse would never defend her for fear of making waves. She better run while she can. Reply 2. This is exactly why I broke off my engagement with my ex. As the baby of the family, he had the same toxic family dynamic that OP has, and as a result, his parents felt the need to infiltrate every aspect of our relationship at every turn, and at each step, he had no footing to stand on to assert his own independence. I did not want to be effectively married to his overbearing parents. Leaving him was the best thing I ever did for my mental health. Reply 3. Yep, I was super young, 18 to 21, when I was dating a guy who had a family that was similar. The guys would sit around and just drink and chat while the women cooked and cleaned up after them. I did what was expected from me, but I was always super resentful about it. I was too young and dumb to realize this was messed up. I know better now and would never date a guy that accepted this crap. You're the a-hole, OP. Response 9. You're the a-hole. Playing along with sexism just perpetuates it. Reply 1. Dudes who claim not to have sexist beliefs but don't challenge sexism when they see it are actively contributing to sexist systems. Saying you don't agree with certain behavior means nothing if you go along with it. And guess what? If not making waves with your sexist family is more important than treating your girlfriend respectfully, then you are, in fact, sexist. Reply 2, exactly. It's the same as if one racist is at a table with 10 people and no one says anything. You have 10 racists. OP claims to not be sexist and totally understands, but refuses to say anything or push back to not make waves. He's just as complicity sexist as the rest of his family. Response 10. I honestly want to know why you think it's okay for your girlfriend to be forced into labor. She doesn't want to do or suffer insane rudeness from your family. Why would she want to attend such an event? Reply 1. Traditionally this is when the women socialized, talked, gossiped, etc. with each other. This was always a big deal when I was growing up, catching up with each other's lives, and no one hated it. It was fun. The guys are watching football, talking about work or whatever. Basically, each had their own interests catered to in these groups. After dinner, everyone talked together. This created bonding within the family. So, is this a principal thing I refuse just because I should? Or does she just not like cooking and have no interest in it? If she did do it, OP should be with her in the kitchen, helping at least for a good long while until she's comfortable. Reply 2. My husband's family is like this. My issue is that the women's opportunity to socialize always involves labor, cooking, cleaning, and keeping the children in check, while the men get to put up their feet, drink a beer, and contribute nothing but their company. I used to try and hang with the women folks so they would like me, but their socializing is almost completely limited to talking about their kids, badgering me about having kids, and talking about being stay-at-home wives. I'm child-free and the primary breadwinner, so obviously this completely alienates me. I've decided to opt for drinking with his cousins and uncles instead, and I think that irritates his female relatives sometimes, but honestly that's not my problem. When you separate socialization by gender instead of actual interests, and then put all of the work on one gender as well, you're just gonna breed resentment. Reply 3. Why shouldn't your wife be forced to do sexist unpaid labor? We'd let her talk during it. Isn't that enough? Totally false equivalence. What would make sense is if the women went off and watched a movie or something together, but instead they're forced to do labor for no reason other than having vaginas. If the men needed time away so badly, even though this is supposed to be a family event, they should all help to cook and clean up, and then they can have their separate activities. That would be fair. Not one gender has to do labor while the other sits around doing nothing. Context matters, and you're trying really hard to ignore it. Response 11. You said this isn't permanent, but the first sentence of your post states that your family has these female service events at the patriarch's estate every few months. Help me understand how that's not permanent. Oh, and you're the a-hole. Response 12 op. You say this is every few months? So every few months she is supposed to throw away her self-respect and put up with this sexist crap because you think that this is easier than speaking up because they won't listen to you anyway. If it were me, I would think that you and your family are so not worth it and dump your spineless ass. You're the a-hole. Reply 1. No, I asked her to do it just this time to make a good first impression. Reply 2. And then in the comments, it went up to 1-2 times. Bet there'll be 3rd, 4th, and so on times, since your family is just a bunch of disgusting bullies. Response 13. She's absolutely right. You're trying to make yourself sound better than your old-fashioned sexist family, but you're actually no different from them. I suspect it won't be an issue for long, though. Your GF seems to have seen what you're really like. I'd be surprised if she isn't considering ending things. You're the a-hole, and your family too from the sound of it. Reply 1. The family sounds like a bunch of assholes for sure. Ostracizing and cattiness to someone they are entertaining in their home and just met? How crappy. Also, how uncomfortable would it be to have to cook and clean up and make small talk with a bunch of new people who you know to be the type to treat others like crap, while the one person you do know is off doing something else? Response 14. You're the a-hole for trying to make her do something she doesn't want to do. Why don't you start creating a new tradition where you other men cook too? You being the youngest doesn't mean you have to be complacent. Maybe the women want to cook, but your partner doesn't have to. If the family doesn't accept her, don't go to the dinners. Reply 1. My spouse's family was like this when we first got together. Fortunately, I like to cook, and in the beginning went along with it, and it's not all the women, just the ones who want to help, But after I got comfortable with the family, I started assigning cleanup duties to the girls and the boys. The tradition is now everyone, except for those over 70, helps clean up. It's never too late to start a new tradition. Reply 2. I assume that his being the youngest affects his place in the inheritance of his great-grandfather's estate. Thus, he is less able to disrupt traditions without jeopardizing his future wealth, which makes him more of a selfish asshole than a sexist asshole. Still sexist, but mostly selfish. Response 15. Not the a-hole. Man, it's just cooking, and all you did was ask. It doesn't hurt anyone. I would agree to do this in a heartbeat, and would be bothered if a partner couldn't even put themselves through the most minor of inconveniences for my sake. I also find the comments asking you to burn the bridge with your family to be epic and own the patriarchy are ridiculous. Reply 1. He's asking his girlfriend, who was invited over as a guest, to prove to his family that she is just as subservient as the last generation. You don't invite people to your house so they can cook for you, at least not without paying them. Reply 2. I pretend to like football or feign interest in whatever my father-in-law likes. I'd go work in the kitchen if her parents would like it. I only focus on making a good impression, but I come from a somewhat crappy family. They can't make a good impression with guns to their heads.